A new Australian film is now released on various digital platforms, courtesy of Bounty Films, a film called Your Love Is Mine. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the writers, directors of the film, Luke J.S and Luke Wijayasinha-Gray. Welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
Now, tell me how you worked together. What was the inspiration behind the story of Your Love Is Mine?
It's the inspiration came from it's about being at a point in a romantic relationship where one person wants the relationship to continue more than the other. So you arrive at this point where something's got to change, and I think we both wanted to tell a story that looked at that sort of thing, but we knew we didn't want to just tell a straight kind of drama story. We knew that we both had an interest in horror. I don't think we set out to make a straight horror film either. So yeah, the film that you see is a result of that. It's yeah, somewhere in between a drama and a horror. Is that fair to say, Luke?
Yeah. I think it was sort of, looking back on it, it's a little bit like a fantasy world that we created rather than set in the real world. It was a bit like, yeah, a little bit like, it started off as a bit like a fairy tale, and then became a little bit darker as we went along. But yeah, I agree with what you said.
Okay. It's interesting, as I was watching it, I thought it was less of a horror film and more of a dark psychological drama. And you certainly create a world for these two lead actors that is a difficult one for audiences to navigate, which I like. I like films that are challenging.
Oh, cool. I'm glad. Yeah, I think it has ended up becoming more of a dark drama than, as you say, like Luke said, we didn't necessarily want it to be a horror film. So, yeah, I'm pleased that that's how you perceived it when you watched the film.
Yes. Is this the first time the two of you have worked together? Is this your first feature film?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. How did that come about, especially in terms of being able to have production behind you?
It was very bare bones. So it's a micro budget film. We we met through not really film related circumstances. And I was in a band. Luke was doing video production stuff. He was going to shoot a music video for my band. We became friends, developed this story together, and yeah, in the beginning there was very much we were learning everything really about the industry, how to put a film together, how to structure a film, and pretty quickly realized that we weren't at a point where we could reach out to institutions like Screen Australia. I think in the beginning we were probably a bit naive about like how easy it is to access development funding, production funding, stuff like that. So we kind of got to this point where we realized we either had to make it with kind of what we had available to us, or not, or kind of just keep or put it aside for the future. And we both really wanted to push ahead, and we made it on a budget of we had one private investor, but it was still a very very micro budget film.
Sure. did you have to make any compromises in terms of the look of the film and the way you put it together?
Yeah, I think so. I think the whole thing was. Would you agree, Luke? Probably the entire experience was probably working out how to navigate compromise.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think, like Luke said, once we realized that we weren't really getting any funding, well, from Screen Australia or major funding bodies, we sort of knew it was going to be bare bones. So we were looking all the time for locations that didn't have to be set dressed or anything. So we could just go in on the day, because we didn't rehearse really. Well, we didn't rehearse anything. We went in on the day and then sort of found an area in the set to shoot in, and then made a quick decision and then shot it then within an hour and a half or so for each scene. So yeah, it was definitely fly on the wall a lot of the time. We weren't really we weren't able to plan a lot of the production really.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
How interesting. Almost guerrilla filmmaking. That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me, did either of you have any films in mind or filmmakers that inspired the way you made Your Love Is Mine?
We
I
had,
know in the beginning. Yeah, sorry, Luke, go on.
I was going to say we had a few. We were sort of watching a few films that inspired us at a time. Yeah, what were you going to say, Luke?
We one thing that we wanted to bring to the film was we looked at a few of these kind of. There's this really specific tone of Australian films from like the kind of 80s, early 90s ish. Like a few movies we looked at were, Muriel's Wedding. What's the one where the guy is a fish? He becomes a fish.
Yeah,
Love Serenade.
that's it. Yeah.
This kind of like that kind of show Australian like characters as sort of a little bit kind of innocent in this kind of kooky, really specific way that we wanted to bring into the film. So that's why the first half, I think it sort of has this feeling of being like a lost movie from that era. But then there's I think a pretty hard tone shift into a bit more bleakness, and I'm not sure where that came from. If
I think that's potentially. I was inspired a lot at the time by Mike Leigh as well, British filmmaker who does a lot of bleak observational drama, and so maybe some of that inspiration. And we were also really inspired by films like Place Beyond the Pines at that time, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And
it was a whole lot of kind of different influences with this one, I think. And I think that's also probably the hallmark of first time filmmakers, is like throwing all these different, I want to put everything that I'm watching and influenced by into one film, you know what I mean?
Okay. Now, tell me about casting, because how did you find Seri and Lester, who are the two main characters in the film?
Sini and Les. Sini we found through Star Now, which is the, I don't know, kind of the database of actors and film crew that you can just search through. We put out a casting call in there and had a lot of applications. Sini jumped out at us pretty quickly, though. I think she was actually the first actor we cast. And Les, it took a bit longer to find our Sam, because we were looking for something really specific, and no one was jumping out at us in the way that Cini did. I think in the end we were just about to cast another actor, and we kind of thought, let's have one more look, because we weren't happy. We weren't totally happy, but we thought we've got to move ahead. And we, I think, just happened to be looking through an agent's page. I think he was with, I can't remember who he was with at the time, but yeah, we just reached out through his agent. We didn't know at the time that he had done kind of how much he'd done. He was in some of Chris Lilly's work. He'd been in Underbelly, a couple other things, but we actually didn't know that when we reached out to him.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, go on, Luke.
And when we auditioned Lester for the role, we'd already cast Cini. So when we auditioned Lester, we had filmed it, and we just knew basically immediately that he was perfect for the role. So we cast him pretty much, I think, the same day or maybe the next day. But yeah, it was kind of crazy that it was the last minute casting, considering how well they work together.
They do. Cini and Lester work very well together. Did you do much rehearsal or preparation with them?
We tried not to, and I think both actors don't like to, or didn't at the time like to over rehearse. So we'd probably run the lines with them on the day, and then do a quick blocking of the scene, and then we'd shoot it, and we'd usually get it within a couple of takes for both of them. But they're so good that and I think they really got the characters and understood what we were trying to do, and played off each other brilliantly. So we didn't have to rehearse a lot with them.
Okay. Very interesting to hear that. I noticed there was a credit in memory of Gary Wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Gary, who played the character of Tony, who's Violet's dad.
Yep.
He very sadly passed away a few years ago now, and sadly before he got to see the film have any kind of release. He was brilliant guy and a great actor. We miss him a lot.
Yeah. No, that was a very sad credit. Yeah, I understand. Tell me about the editing process, because that's also where a lot of the film, a film, can be restructured or altered in some way. What was the editing process like?
That was probably the hardest part.
Yeah. Long and very challenging.
Yeah, it was really difficult actually to edit. It took a good few years to get it right.
I think at that point we really learned the importance of structure, in how hard it is to put something together that's long form. We kind of went into it going, yeah, let's make a feature. It'll be great. We'll just edit it, the way the script is written. And we learned the hard way that it's not that easy.
And it started off, the first cut was actually almost 3 hours long.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's how, and now it's become a 1 hour, 20-minute film. So yeah, we cut a lot out, because I think the mistake we made was to give the supporting characters too much stuff to do. And when we were editing it, we realized that the supporting characters were taking too much attention away from Violet and Sam's story. So we, at one point, the edit, we took all of the supporting characters out, and I think it was just Tony, Violet's dad. He was the only one left in the film in terms of supporting characters. But then it felt too bleak and dark because Violet and Sam's story is pretty depressing a little bit. So the supporting characters help to lighten the film. So we brought them back, but with a reduced amount of screen time. But I think we sort of nailed that in the end, the balance there. But the structure as well, like halfway through, there were scenes that made sense, but we weren't happy with how they came, how they were sort of being cut together, or we weren't happy with the sets, or it looked a little bit shabby or whatever, and some of the dialogue didn't work, so we sort of had to cut certain scenes out that then made parts of the story not make sense. So then we had to rearrange the structure so that we could include little parts of certain scenes so that the story still made sense, but then I don't know, it was hard. It was difficult.
It was really, yeah.
I think you can sort of tell that from the halfway point, basically, when she, rides off into the sunset on her motorbike / dies. I think that's the point where we sort of started to struggle with the structure and how long it took for us to edit from the halfway point until the end. That was the part that we were going back and forward on over like a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The process is always so interesting, and the way you two collaborated sounds like it worked very well. Tell me about getting the film seen. It's great that Bounty Films, of course, have picked it up, but tell me about screenings that you've had so far and the reactions that you've been getting to Your Love Is Mine.
So our first, the film had its world premiere at a festival called A Night of Horror, which in 2022 was still based in Sydney. The festival's since relocated to the United States. So it was our first screening. That was great. I think that was something that we both really needed as indie filmmakers. I think getting that first sort of festival acceptance to a good festival as well, and one that also it really connected us, I think, with an audience who appreciated the film, and also the festival director, a guy called Bryn Tilley, was super passionate about horror and indie Australian horror. Since then, the film's screened at a few festivals over in the States. I think we did Salem Horror Fest, Midwest Weird Fest, and a smaller festival called Cabin in the Woods. And somewhere in between those, we started to get distribution offers, and Bounty were who we ended up going with. But reactions are, sorry, Luke.
I think I was just going to say, I think we, with hindsight, we should have potentially applied for more festivals, submitted the film to more festivals, and we're because this is our first feature as well. We're sort of learning about, even this is all new to us in terms of releasing and like how to market and like how to get people to even see a trailer or but what were you going to say, Luke? The reaction.
The reactions have been mostly really good. We have had a couple of like mediocre reviews, which is I think normal. But we've had some people really connecting with the film. Especially another really important kind of step for us was getting a pretty good review from Cinema Australia. Matthew over there really connected with it, and that really helped us along, I think, as well in the beginning, because those sorts of connections are invaluable for sort of small time filmmakers.
Yep, absolutely. And now the film is on digital release, courtesy of Bounty Films. So I must ask you both, Luke and Luke, are you both working on another film at the moment?
We're not together at the moment. We're both working on our own projects. I think we've talked about. I'd say we will collaborate again, but yeah, I have a script in development with a producer at the moment, which is the script's been doing fairly well at competitions and festivals, and yeah, and Luke's working on something of his own as well.
Yeah, I've been stewing on an idea for a couple of years, and finally this year got the scripts down. So I reckon hopefully next year I'll start looking into attaching a producer to it and getting that underway. Yeah, but yeah, like Luke said, it would be good to work together again at some point. We probably will. We've got different ideas. I think for this next round, we both wanted to tell our own individual stories and do something on our own for a bit.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Luke's next film. It's the script's really good.
Okay, yes, me too. We'll see how you both go in terms of your future plans and future films. And last question I love asking all filmmakers, have you seen any films or TV series or whatever recently that impressed you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think of what's something recently I've seen that I really enjoyed. Yeah, is there anything coming to mind for you, Luke?
I think I've seen quite a few films this year in the cinema, and I'm really impressed by a lot of films that are being released at the moment, indie films.
I really liked Long Legs. That struck a chord with me. And I also watched Ari Aster's third film, Beau is Afraid. That was wild, but really enjoyed, especially the first kind of act of that. Those are two that are coming to mind for me.
I liked All of Us Strangers as well, which was a film released a couple of months ago. That was really beautifully made and told.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're good recommendations, and certainly I recommend, now available on digital release courtesy of Bounty Films, that people have a look at Your Love Is Mine. And we've been speaking to the writer-directors of Your Love Is Mine, Luke J.S and Luke Wijayasinha-Gray. Thank you both so much for talking with me.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for your time as well.
No problem at all. All the best. Catch you later.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.